Hello and welcome to day 5 of the 12 Days of Christmas Watercolor Challenge. And if you are needing to catch up on any of the previous days, all you need to do is just scroll on down and in the description of this video, you will find information on links to the previous videos. And also, if you are just brand new joining, there will be a link down there on how to sign up and you'll get the free printable outlines for this challenge. So, all right, you can catch up as well if you are needing to learn more about the supplies and everything. That will be over in day 1's video in the intro. So glad that you are here painting along. I hope you are enjoying this challenge so far. I have been so looking forward to today's painting. I just think that this Christmas mantle scene will be so much fun to paint and will make such a beautiful card to send for the holiday season. So let's go ahead and get started. And what I'll do is grab my size 10. So this is a medium size pointed round brush. And I'm going to start by working on this stone fireplace. And for the stones, I'm going to be using mixes of our Payne's Grays and the burnt umber color that I have in my palette, which actually I think I'll just go ahead and put a little bit more in the palette here. That'll be a color we use quite a bit. We'll use it within like the mantle piece and also within the floor. All right, so let's get our brush nice and wet. Okay, so creating that stone color. So it's just kind of that warm, but also grayish stone, fireplace. I'm gonna mix the Payne's Gray with my burnt umber. It's gonna give us kind of that, really like a stone color. So we'll use kind of a variety of that and drop in browns with it as well. This is something that I love to use, this type of technique, for when I'm painting any type of natural rock, landscapes and stuff like that. So I would say I have about a medium amount of paint on my brush, and I'll start at the top and work my way down. Okay, so the key here will be to just work within each individual brick. So we can just start by kind of painting in a brick. And then I like to get rid of that paint, and then I'll just kind of blot around it, and you can even leave little bits of white appearing there. Okay, so super simple like that. Now for the next brick, I'm gonna grab a little bit more of the Payne's Gray so I get more of like a bluish color brick. I'm gonna leave a little bit of white, so where the outline is dividing like the bricks, I'm just gonna leave a little bit of white in between. Okay, so now that one looks a little bit more blue. Just pick up a little more of that paint color there. You can even drop some of that blue into the one we just painted. All right, let's grab maybe a little bit more on the browns here. We just want to try and like create a little bit of a variety. Oops, I guess that was going to be a really large stone, so I must have forgotten to put a little bit of an outline there. That's okay. We'll just go ahead and fill in that nice large space. While that's wet, I'll pick up some of the bluish Payne's Gray tones, and we're just going to drop them in around there. All right. So that's going to be kind of like our system as we work our way down the fireplace. Isn't that so pretty? So we're looking for just like natural earthy colors. And then also kind of looking around for the colors that we've already painted. So here I have some darker, cooler colors. Now I'll just pick up more of that warm color I was just working on, and I'll go ahead and paint that one in. So I don't have like a ton of paint on my brush. I just wanted to keep it kind of light. I'll grab more in the cooler colors here. And again, trying to leave a little bit of white to help divide our bricks. They don't have to be perfect little outlines. And I'm leaving little flecks of paper showing through. But something to make like a stone like this look natural is to go back before the brick dries and just pick up a different color within the color scheme that we're using and just drop it in there. It's just gonna make it look not so flat. All right, maybe I'll grab some blue. So again, just go ahead, maybe turn on some nice holiday music, and this should hopefully be very relaxing and meditative. You really cannot mess this part up. So I'm just gonna go somewhat quickly here because you really can choose whatever colors you want now that you get the system down. But again, before this dries, I'll just drop a little bit of that darker, cooler color in there, like that. This is gonna look so very pretty. Just grab some of the cooler colors. And now if you ever wanted to make one of the bricks maybe look a little bit darker, just pick up more paint and a little less water. It's just gonna help it look a little bit darker without color mixing, you know, another new color. All right. You don't always have to get rid of the paint on your brush every time you go to pick up maybe a new color for a brick because they're gonna work together throughout. Now that one looked too brown. And if that happens to you, all I'm gonna do is just grab some of these other tones and just drop them in there, like that. All right, we'll work around this wreath. I'll come back through and do like the center of the wreath in a little bit. But we just wanna make sure that we have a nice variety of color. Just drop in a little bit of the blues, like that. Maybe pick up only blue on this one. I'm calling Payne's Gray kind of that blue, dark blue color. It is kind of like a navy color. It's just such a great color I use this color so much, a lot within my pet portrait paintings. I also use it in landscapes. It truly is one of my favorite, most used paint colors. So I highly recommend, if you do not have that color, to definitely add it into your palette. I think that you'll find it's a really nice one because you can mix it with browns to create warm, you know, black colors that aren't black straight from the palette. So we'll do that. Just kind of working our way down here. You can hear my dog sitting right next to me. He is, he has a lot of burrs like from the woods in his fur. So he's trying to get those out. Okay. So I'm just going to start with a color like this brown one, pick up a little bit of the Payne's Gray and drop it in there. I think that adds such a nice variety. There. Okay, we've gotten through the top half of our fireplace. Let's go ahead and incorporate it down all the way. It's this fieldstone type of, I don't know if that's exactly what they call it, but stone fireplace, which I think are such pretty fireplaces. All right, I'm gonna grab a different color, working around my stockings and trying to be careful to not paint over like where the greenery will be. And this little bar underneath is our mantelpiece, and we'll come back to that one as well. All right. Grab this piece. Not exactly sure if that was supposed to be a one full brick or not, but I'll just connect it. Combine these two colors. Watercolor will dry lighter than what it appears when you first put it down onto the paper. So just something to note if you feel like you're like, oh no, that was less, you know, way too much paint. The more you continue to work with it and play with it, you'll notice that it dries lighter. So you can kind of see these areas are a little darker, just a couple shades darker than the areas that have already kind of dried. All right. This is a very relaxing type of painting because it's super free. You don't need to be really detailed. All right. And right over here to our left of our painting is the Christmas tree. which we will do. I don't know, we'll probably do that after our fireplace is completed. All right, add some more down here. And again, try to leave a little bit of flecks of white of the paper. Let's add just a little bit more darkness to that one. You could do it if you didn't want to go side by side. You could always just pick some bricks and just do a bunch of the Payne's gray color and then come back and do a bunch of the brown, however you like to work. I'm just kind of working my way down. All right. I'll pick up a little bit more on the blue side for this brick here. And a little bit more in the browns here. Okay. I know there's not much more to really say once we get our system down. We're just working our way down. But I think this pattern will be a really pretty look for our card. All right, let's do that. Let's see. So this inner part right here, this is the inside of our fireplace. So I'm gonna not paint that piece. Come on over here, paint this little brick there. Like that. And let's see, add a little more in the browns down here. We're almost there. Just gotta add a little bit, a few more bricks. All right. Add in a little bit of the blues here. Go back to our brown. It's always kind of hard. Sometimes you kind of grab the same colors. All right, like that. And I want to add at least one more brick on this side. Something like that. All right. So there, I was able to get through all of those bricks. So now what we'll do next is work on, the hearth area of our fireplace, and then we'll go back through and do the fire part. Okay, so let's go ahead and move down to the hearth of the fireplace, which is just actually going to be kind of that cooler blue cement stone color. I'm going to mix the Payne's gray with a little bit of our brown, but I wanted to stay more on the cooler blue side. Just looking for that cool blue gray color. I do not have a lot of color on my brush, mostly water. I'll start towards the back of this part of the hearth part and going to pick up a little bit more water and dab my paper towel and start to pull that color towards the front. And then, so it's pretty light and subtle. I'm going to make that front part of that little ledge there, just the front of the ledge. And again, just gonna make it that same color, but I'm just gonna use some fun little tiny thin strokes. You can kind of see that's creating like a little bit of a texture. Kind of gives it just that rough cut of cement kind of coming there, and then just helps to divide it from this upper part. All right, working around the bows, kind of go in between the ribbon, working our way this way, all the way over to the trunk of the tree. All right. And then down below is going to be just a little bit of a darker version of what we were just creating. So grab a little bit more of the Payne's gray Mixing it with a little bit of our brown. And again, more Payne's Gray, just to be a little bit darker. So being careful, it shouldn't bleed or blend too much into the ledge or that edge that you just painted, because I just didn't really use that much water. And I'm just going to run it all the way down to complete that part. So again, working in between the ribbons. I'm still working with my bigger medium-sized brush, but if you need to, just switch to a smaller one just to get in between some of these little intricate pieces. All right. Something like that, making sure we have a pretty straight line on the bottom. All right. So there's that part of the mantle, or the fireplace, I should say. Next we will, I think we'll do the fire part and then come back up to the mantle. So this is going to be kind of like a darker inner side to the fireplace, just so it looks like it's actually set in, but then it's going to have this glowing fire. So let's go ahead and actually do the fire part first. And we are just going to do it in kind of your obvious colors. So I have this really bright lemon yellow, and that might actually be a little too bright, but I also have a yellow ochre. If your colors are ever getting a little bit mixed, like mine, my yellow ochre has a lot of greens kind of overlapping in them, just go through and try and scoop it out or put down some new paint from the tube. All right, I think that got a lot of that out of there. I'm gonna grab the yellow ochre to start. All right, I'm going to use that first to create that nice center to our fire, which is going to be, you know, that warmer part of the fire, like that. And then I'm gonna get rid of that paint on my brush, and I really wanna make sure that it's going to be lighter. And this is where I could mix that brighter yellow with my yellow ochre to really start to make sure it's lighter around there. Okay, so there's that part of it. We certainly can grab, even while this is still wet, I have a burnt sienna, which is kind of that orangey brown. That would be a really pretty color to drop in kind of where we did the yellow ochre at the beginning, to make it just a little bit warmer and darker right there. And then from here, we want to make sure that it's kind of like illuminating. And to do that, we're going to work with mostly water. So I'm just going to take my wet brush and run it right around the area that we've already painted. It might even pick up some of the yellow that was already on the paper. And feel free to grab other yellow paint if you need to. Drop it into that wet area that you just laid down, and that's going to help it really kind of give that glow. So you want to make sure you're darker on the inside and then getting lighter as you're working your way out. And I know that you can kind of see the outline, so once this dries, we can go back through and add just some individual looking flames. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for now. Get rid of that paint so far on my brush. And now let's work on the inner part, which what I'm going to do for that is going to be my burnt umber color, that brown. And then I'm going to mix it with my Payne's Gray, one of my favorite combos. And I want to make sure it is nice and dark. You can kind of see already this is way darker than the colors I was mixing for the bricks. And let's warm it up a little bit with the burnt sienna. Needs to be just a little bit warmer because it's got a fire that's glowing. All right, so I'm gonna grab more of that there. And we might need to add more of that warm color, but let's just start with that. I'm going to actually work on the side walls first, because then that way I don't accidentally run into my wet paint. So I have quite a bit of paint on my brush, and I'm just gonna start to work my way out. And again, the Christmas tree is gonna kind of overlap it there. Just do the best we can. And coming up, the darkest areas will be back where the creases are, where, you know, it kind of comes in like this. So making sure that that little line back there is going to be the darkest. And then we can get rid of the paint on our brush and work our way out like that. It's also going to be the darkest right along the top half, just anywhere that is the setback the farthest. So I'm going to add a little more Payne's Gray to my brown just to make it nice and dark and drop it right along that line. I'll show you what that looks like a little bit closer, because now you can kind of see that that's an edge setback. All right, so this is also going to be kind of right along the top, that same dark color. And it will also act as that same line going this side, on the side. I am gonna grab a little more on the warmer brown color scheme here. And I am going to paint that in towards the back here. And working around my fire. Again, we do want it to be nice and warm, so let's grab maybe more of the burnt sienna. I'm gonna drop that in kind of right around the fire. You can kind of see how that's starting to kind of mix. And it's okay if part of your flame is not fully dry yet. If it intermixes with it, that is totally great. All right, grab some more of the darker color. Start to fill in around the back side here and down. I'll kind of show that too there. So now it looks like our fire is starting to really glow. All right, let's work on this side. And again, just that same mixture of Payne's Gray and our burnt umber. Maybe just a little bit of our burnt sienna there. Let's bring it down and then out towards the front. Oops, got a little on my stocking there. And fill it in. I'm definitely going to add some more of that really nice, almost black light color into the corner back side. I'll go ahead and do that. So I'll grab more of the Payne's Gray. Mix it with our brown and then run it right down that line and towards the top. All right, starting to look like it actually has a 3D effect. So play with that. If you need to add more color or anything like that, go for it. I definitely want to add a little bit more to my fire and also those logs. And I'm not going to do much for the logs. I'm just going to grab a little bit of that brown color and just kind of, if it's not too wet still, kind of drop it in right along the log area. You can kind of get that to kind of stay put. But if yours is still too wet, just hold off on that part for a little bit longer. All right. For the floor of our fireplace, inside of our fireplace right here, let's go ahead and we can make it also kind of like that cooler, you know, floor. So I'm gonna just add a little bit of that Payne's Gray into our brown. Kind of watch where I'm gonna put that. I'm working around the log area and bringing it up towards the front. It can definitely be darker than this hearth part because it's set in. Like that. Okay, I'm just gonna let that be for now. I will go back and add maybe a few flames with my brighter yellows into the fire. Okay, let's work on the mantle. And I'm going to do kind of that same color here with the browns. I'm going to take my burnt umber and mix it maybe just a little bit with our Payne's Gray, just so it's not like a super, you know, brown. It just needs to have a little more flatness or natural color to it. And I am just going to do my best to kind of give it kind of a jagged line along those needles of our garland. And so I'll just kind of work in between there. So I don't have a ton of paint on my brush, just enough to kind of paint in my beam. So it's just a wood beam. You can pick up some brown, drop it in just to kind of brighten it up in certain areas. If yours got too gray, you definitely want it to offset itself from the brick. All right. And if you get some onto the brick, I'm not too worried about it. I am going to actually create a shadow underneath the beam to make it look a little more natural. All right. Nice and quick. You can add more dimension to your beam by just picking up maybe a little bit more brown, adding the Payne's Gray and dropping it closer to the garland. Just dropping that color right in there. That creates that easy depth and shadow. Okay. So now we'll let that area dry before we go back and do the garland. We can go up top here and do the little green wreath, which will get us ready then to mimic that within our garland too. And for that, I'm going to switch to a size 6. So something a little bit smaller like this will be nice because this wreath is kind of on the small side. So here I have my sap green. I am going to add a little bit of a, you know, color to that just to help make it look a little more natural, since this green isn't necessarily a natural looking green. So here I have that. I'm going to mix a little bit of our Payne's Gray just to darken it, kind of that evergreen look. All right, so I want to make sure that I don't have too much water on my brush, and definitely feel free to rotate your painting as it's comfortable, and going to keep it nice and easy to create this wreath. So I'm just going to do little lines like that, and you want to make sure that they're kind of coming down in a circular motion, so they're kind of curved. Some of them might be kind of coming up. You know how wreaths can kind of have that circular look, but then also their branches kind of go in all different directions. All right, I'm gonna grab a little more with that darker color. It's kind of nice just to throw a different color here and there. Kind of coming around. Again, you should be able to overlap it into the fireplace brick now that it is dry, and it should not run or bleed into it. So just make sure that that is fully dry. I know that we still need to paint the inner side of our, or the inside of the wreath that shows the brick or the stone. All right, I'm just gonna continue around. And again, making sure that we're kind of going in a circular motion, leaving little bits of white of the paper showing through to kind of individualize those branches, those needles. give it more of that natural earthy look. All right, working our way up. You want to have enough water on your brush to make sure that it is gliding nicely across the paper like that, but then also not crackling. All right, let's see. So I'll add a red ribbon. Kind of look at your wreath to see if there's anything you want to do to it, if you like that look to it. Or I think I might flatten mine a little bit by just adding a little bit of kind of a layer right on top of it. So here I'll just add my Payne's Gray and my green. I'm going to use more water, just kind of a light amount, and I'm just going to run it kind of right over those branches just to soften some of that area, especially towards the inside. So something just kind of like that. Okay. So I better let that dry before I go and create any type of bow. I'm afraid that otherwise it'll bleed and run into each other. This should be, your mantle should be dry if you didn't use too much water. So again, we might as well just continue down, creating that same type of texture and color within our mantle greenery. All right. And also that same look. So my strands are just going to kind of come up and kind of come over and down. And then just using tiny little strokes. Some of them will kind of come up a little bit, but yeah, mostly they will be falling and draping down. All right. So using real thin pressure with the point of your brush, you should be able to have nice control over how those needles are laying. Add a little more darkness to it. And it's nice to just kind of throw that in areas so it's not one flat green color. So I'll just kind of pull that up here just so you can see it. Giving us that nice pine texture. All right, let's do the other side. Coming down. Got some coming straight down. And now we'll have to be a little bit careful where we set our hands so we don't bump it. So I might just rotate my painting slightly here. And that way I can make sure that I'm not bumping it. So one thing as we're working this way now, kind of down the center is going to be our divide, and then our garland is going to actually kind of hang in this direction. Need to add a little more water to my brush. So now I'll start to paint them going kind of down in curved motions this way. Gives it more of that natural flow rather than being so uniform. All right. Be sure to grab a variety of your greens. Just add a little bit of that more natural look to it. All right. So I left a little bit of white in between. What I could do is just go back and use my nice bright sap green. You can mix a little yellow with it just to brighten it. And then I can go through and just kind of run it right over top of that area. And you can just see that that's going to create that nice green, brighter color in the white areas if you don't like the look of so much white. You kind of want to wait for those lines to kind of dry before running paint over them, just so they stay put a little bit like that. All right. Nice. And then if you would rather see some of that up top here. If you don't like some of the white that you still have, just run that green right into there. Okay, I'm loving all the different textures that we're able to create so far. And now let's add a little bit of a dark shadow. So this beam definitely is going to cast a shadow right underneath it. And to do that, I'm just going to use kind of a light amount of Payne's Gray. You could get Payne's Gray mixed with your brown, really anything. So I'm just going to grab a little bit more. If you have any green on your Payne's Gray area, just make sure you're not grabbing too much green. Okay, and then we are just going to take one little swipe right along underneath the beam. You can see that already is creating a nice piece of depth. Maybe make it a little bit bigger, like that. And if you'd like to make it even darker, just grab a little more Payne's Gray, but then just run it right underneath the beam. All right, that makes it look a lot more realistic and 3D. You can add that same shadow up around the wreath up here. Kind of just imagine that same type of shadow kind of coming around. So I just grabbed a little of the Payne's Gray right around the wreath there. All right. So now we can work on some of the red parts to our painting here. So I'm going to use, still with the same small pointed round brush, and I'm just going to paint on that nice red bow. So I'm just going to use my Alizarin Crimson, this red color, straight from the tube. I'm not going to do anything with it. This is such a small detail up here that I just need it to give the illusion that it's a ribbon. So I just kind of did a few loops. I'll do a few little strings. And I also am going to make some red stockings. Feel free to make them whatever you would like. You could have fun with this. I would like to just do like a red knit. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and just paint kind of a medium amount of paint on my brush and fill in the stocking with this red color. And then I'll go back through and kind of create a little bit of texture over top once it has dried. All right, so something to achieve this effect will be nice and easy. Let's add a little more red. Do that to this one. And again, if you want to create a pattern, plaid, stripe, design, go for it. Keep mine kind of simple. All right. So again, I'll just let those dry and we'll come back to them. I do think I'm going to create like a little red string, but you got to make sure this area needs to feel dry enough to the touch. And if it's not, just wait a little bit. I did not have that much water on my shadow, so mine is going to stay put. Okay. Let's see, let's create our Christmas tree. And I am going to keep it somewhat of a simple decorated tree. I just wanted to at least have the Christmas tree within the scene. So I definitely want to incorporate the red into like you could either do ribbons, like tied ribbons, which would be really pretty. You could do ornaments in the red. I'm still trying to decide exactly what I want to do, but I think I'm going to do red, just traditional like globe ornaments. So I'm going to start by doing the ornaments first before working on the branches. So it's okay if you don't get your ornaments perfectly circular. Just kind of put those throughout. I haven't even put up a Christmas tree yet, so kind of winging this. And I will say that we aren't one to create this really beautiful looking, organized, decorated tree. We actually just, we collect our, you know, childhood ornaments. Like I have mine, my husband's, and then now we're just gaining some as we grow together. So we have more of like a memory decorated ornament tree. If you guys do any fun traditions with your tree, I'd love to hear about them. I know some people do really beautiful designed decorated trees, so I'd love to hear about if you are more of a memory ornament tree like ours, or if you are more of like a organized traditional decorated tree. All right. This won't look quite so polka dotty once we get the rest of the tree in. This looks a little funny right now. Just gonna add a few more pieces in here. And there. All right, I think I'll stop there. And I'm trying to decide if I feel like doing other ornaments. I think I'm not going to at the moment. I can always go through and add maybe some white garland at the end with the bleed proof white, or do something like that. So I think I'll skip it for now. All right, so let's go through and create our Christmas tree and the branches. So you've already kind of done this now a couple times with the garland and the wreath. So I have a good amount of paint on my brush. This is where we are going to, it has to be a little bit more, you know, texture to it, or bigger branches. So I'm gonna just make something a little bit more full and making sure to overlap the areas that come over front of our fireplace. All right, but still in that same texture that we're creating, similar to how we did up there. My strokes are just maybe a little bit thicker because they're closer to the forefront here. Be sure to grab some darker paint, so the green mixed with any Payne's gray colors, and yeah, just have fun with this part. If you wanted to add more ornaments, definitely do that first before, in any other color, before we move into the greenery part like this. All right. I am going to make sure that we have some kind of coming down the center, so they aren't all just going to the side. Kind of want some that swoop towards the front here. But again, just kind of leaving bits of the paper showing through. And yeah, you can overlap with some of your ornaments to make them look not quite so perfectly up front. You could add a little yellow ochre into your green to make it look even a little bit brighter in some spots. But like I did on the other ones, these pieces, we can always add some of that lighter green into the white. All right. Continuing up top here, I'm going to get a little bit brighter. Just going to use a little less of the Payne's gray. All right, I'm just going to show you what I've done so far. Yeah. little darkness towards the center here. All right, kind of work our way this way. Our center of our tree is kind of right at the cut of our side of our paper. All right, grabbing some more. To the side. Come on this side. Again, this is definitely kind of a looser style of a tree, but you definitely get the idea that it is a pine tree, Christmas tree. All right, working our way up. Just like that. Okay. So now what I will do is add some of that darker color just to help kind of deepen the depth within the tree. Oops. Sometimes I always go throwing my brushes. Luckily it didn't land on my painting. Alrighty, so I'm gonna grab a little bit of a bigger brush so I can cover a little more ground. I'm gonna mix my green and my Payne's gray. All right, and now I am going to just fill in some of the areas that just are super white. So I'm just running right over top with that and darkening some of those areas. Just helps to really create a little more dimension into your tree. All right, so there's some nice darkness there. Kind of put it down underneath here. You can still see the texture that we created from the original lines of our branches, but now just kind of softening some of those areas. It's not quite so unnatural looking. All right. Up. Like that. All right. So we certainly can add more depth to it if you like, if you feel like yours got too one color. So add a little bit of darkness into there with the Payne's gray there. All right. So now we have to do our trunk of our tree. We'll do our burnt umber and a little bit of our Payne's gray just to help make it look a little more in kind of that grayish brown. Just fill in that piece. All right, and to make it look even a little more natural, you just want to make sure that you have a little bit of darker color coming right underneath where the tree is to cast a shadow. All right. So again, one of my favorite things to do, and I'm not going to do it quite yet, but you can use your bleed-proof white to create some white garland, or if you wanted to do some white ornaments, just something to kind of help break up this really green tree. For now, I am going to add a little bit of texture into my stockings so they don't look so flat, since we have quite a bit of texture going on here. So I switched to a little bit of a smaller size 6 brush. I really can do this painting with these two brushes. I'm gonna mix Payne's gray in there, so I have like a deeper, darker red. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of create, I don't want too much paint on my brush, just to kind of keep it subtle. You can just kind of create some fun little textures. So I'll show you this. I'm just kind of doing a bunch of little fun squiggly lines. Just something to break up that flat color. So again, I don't have too much paint on my brush, just something to kind of overlay and stand up onto or against the red stocking. All right. Go ahead and grab a little bit more. Do it on this one. All right. Liking the way that that texture is adding just a little more interest into the stocking. Like that. Again, it's just been like a super quick little texture that I just created there. Okay, let's do our little presents down below. This painting has a lot going on in it, so I know it's a little bit of a longer one, but I just think it's gonna make such a beautiful either print for your home or to send at the holidays. So I have just that same red color. I'm gonna create a bow down here because I'm definitely tying that color in, keeping it pretty cohesive that way. Bring our ribbon down front, to the side. And it's up to you if you want to do your other one in the same red. I'm going to do both of them to match. I guess I haven't decided what the wrapping paper color is going to be. Do I incorporate a new color? Or, I am going to think about that one. I think it would be prettier in like a blue color. It's going to then incorporate a little bit of the blue cooler colors, but it's going to stand out compared to the rest of the painting. Okay, so I'm gonna grab a little bit of my ultramarine blue down here, and I'm gonna add a little bit of the Payne's Gray to that. Let's see, I will do this one in that blue. And then the back one, maybe that'll be, maybe that'll be green. Could leave it white and do your floor a different color. Okay, so there's one. And yeah, let's do the other one in, yeah, maybe a green, or we could do it in a darker blue. I'm just worried that I have too much green going on, so maybe I'll just work with the Payne's Gray color and just make it a little bit of a darker blue set behind there. That way we incorporate, keep within the color scheme, but not overdo some of the colors. Okay, being careful not to run this dark blue into the painting part that we already just did. Just add that below here. All right. Add a little more, just to make sure that that really looks like it's separated. They're two different boxes. Okay, I think that was a good call. Keeps it kind of subtle, but also, you know, not too much of the same color scheme we have going on. All right. We are so very close. I think while I have this tiny little brush, I'm just gonna grab some of this stone color that I'd already mixed up before. All we need to do is just quick fill in the behind this little ribbon. It doesn't even have to be a perfect match of anything, just enough just to kind of make that white part go away. I forgot my tree skirt or collar for the tree down here. I'm gonna make that in like that, what would that be, like a wicker, you know? So I'm just gonna grab my burnt umber and my yellow ochre, combine those two just to get more of like a tan. Okay, so being very cautious and careful not to run it right into the blue that I already just painted. If you want to take a little bit of a break, pause this, let your packages, your presents dry. Or if you feel like you have good control, just kind of work around those. All right. Just did that. Here's my little tree collar. And let's see, we definitely need to add in the floor. Looks like it's just floating there right now. Okay, I'm going to grab my larger size 10, and this is just going to be a wood floor. So a nice, rich, warm, dark floor. So here I have my burnt umber, which really might serve as a really beautiful color for a floor. So I'm just gonna grab quite a bit of it, and now we can start to create our floor. I think I'm gonna go in horizontal planks and make them go that way. So starting here, start to create some nice dark wood pieces, and try to do your best to maybe leave a little bit of a gap between the wood, kind of the same idea of what we did up top there. And that way then you kind of get the idea of like, oh yeah, that's a wood floor. Okay, so some of these wood pieces need to go all the way off. Some of them don't. Some of them can be a little bit lighter so you don't pick up more paint. And maybe you just run them, you know, right there. I'm making mine definitely on the looser side. All right. We don't want too much white showing. So just something to create little horizontal lines. If you can help kind of control where the floor planks are. Again, don't want too much water, so you can really know where that is. Something like that. All right, let's put a few more. Again, feel free to rotate your painting if it makes it easier just to maneuver around it. All right, and grab a little bit more. Just do your best to kind of make horizontal style of planks. All right, I gotta do a few more back there, but just so you can kind of see what I've done so far. The ones back here definitely need to be darker. So I'm gonna grab just a tiny bit of the Payne's Gray just to make sure that these planks look like they're behind the fireplace. Okay, and it's okay if you don't get individual lines in between them. I know it gets harder as it kind of goes back. Okay. All right, I like the way that looks so far. And now it's really, you know, up to us exactly how we want to do our wall next to our fireplace. And I mean, I do like the white, but since we've come this far and like 90% of the painting is completely covered, it doesn't really make sense to leave a really bright white piece of the paper showing. So let's see, we could make it in a neutral color, and we could do it with kind of like a lightish cream color. So I'm thinking kind of like what we did within the fire flame there, but kind of making it not so yellow. So this will be kind of tricky, but let's do our best to grab some of our yellow ochre, and maybe I gotta make sure that we don't get any blue or green in there. We're going to really use like the yellow ochre mixed with just a slight amount. You could put a little bit of our stone mixture into it. So I just have barely any paint and color on my brush. I just want to make sure that my wall isn't like so white. So just a little off-white color. And then I'll just use some water to bring it out along the edge. maybe practice on scrap paper if you're worried about getting the color, you know, figured out. So again, just grabbing a little bit, just kind of like a little bit of a dirty color almost, just to darken up that wall. Something like that. Add it back here and up here. So as you can see, it's super duper subtle. So whatever you can do just to make it kind of, you know, look offset like that. And if you feel the need to go back and kind of fix up your fire, just grab some of your yellow ochre and your brighter yellows, and you can just kind of do some fun little line, like streams or streamer like things in your fire. Definitely not necessary, but just helps to kind of distract from the outline. All right, everybody, there we have our really fun decorated scene for the holidays. I know this was one of our bigger paintings of the challenge, so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you set some time aside to paint along. Just gonna add a little bit of Payne's Gray underneath these packages just to give it a little bit of a shadow to help ground those. But yeah, so if you are painting along, I'd love to see your painting. Please tag me at Windswept Design Studio. That is where I will keep track of your challenge entries. Or if you don't have Instagram, I'll have information. You can send me an email. Just look down below to submit your entries. All right. Thanks so much for being here, and I can't wait to see you all tomorrow for day 6.